Hello and welcome. Recently on the Tipping Point, we have been talking a lot about training and education. Well, one of the bedrocks for all enterprise in recent times today is technology. The world is driven by the advances and the innovations in the technological sector. Entrepreneurship in this sector is also growing with its own difficulties and challenges. But how do you train an innovator? How do you train an entrepreneur? And how do you train a techie? As a matter of fact, most turkeys, if you want to start naming them, from the Bill Gates, the Mark Zuckerbergs, at least the ones that are really that prominent, are school dropouts. And I asked my guest for today, why do most of them make it a habit of dropping out of school? What's happening with these tech guys? It's like it's a rule for you to become a techie, you have to drop out of school, or you don't even go to school at all. So this got me thinking, is the power beyond innovative techies, or the power behind rather innovative turkeys, the guys who make great strides, that they don't go to school? They don't want formal training. But if they don't want formal training, how do you standardize the processes such that people who don't have some of the intrinsic and inbuilt values that they have may be able to adapt them? My guest for today's edition of the show is a staunch advocate of people not going to school. Well, I deliberately wanted to put this part in this intro. He's a school dropout. Now, I can say that in that way because he's my friend. So on today's edition of The Tipping Point, we're just going to have a friendly conversation, okay? It's just going to be two guys causing dans le quartier. You understand my setting? So great. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this break, and I'll introduce you to my guest. And you're welcome back. And I told you he's my friend, and we're just going to have an interesting conversation. First, he has a very nice afro. He's very handsome. The number you see on the screen is not his number, so don't call it. He's not up for grabs. And he's one of Cameroon's finest programmers. I mean, I've seen some of the work he's done firsthand. And he has a fine pen as well. I don't know how a techie is able to write that well, because anyways, let me clarify something. When I said he dropped out of school, it's not like he went to Form 1 or ended in class 7. This guy has a degree. So you don't even qualify to be a school dropout. Mr. Cedric Azeh. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you. This is for the people who see him on social media and you don't know how he looks. This is Cedric Ipkiss, by the way. Now, where did you come from with Ipkiss? Is it from the Max?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it is from the mask because I memorized the entire script of the mask. And so when I was in the university, we played it one day and I said everything from the first to the last. I've still got at least 75% of the entire script, so people decided to start calling me Ipkiss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now people need to start calling me either Terry Childers or because the only movie I memorized start to finish was Rules of Engagement with Samuel L. Jackson and Tom Lee Jones.
Yeah.
I loved that movie. Now I didn't know that about you. You watch movies to the extent that you memorize them.
Well, currently I no longer watch movies. That was I grew up in the mask because it's a movie which was acted in I think 1994.
Yes.
And so we had a VHS cassette, and
wow.
I watched it over and over and over and over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because my first question would have been, you didn't go to school to learn what you do now.
Yeah.
Your degree is not in technology, it's not in programming, it's not in IT. So if you didn't go to school to learn it and you spend your time watching movies to the extent that you can memorize them, how do you get the time to be one of the finest programmers that you are?
Actually, you cannot afford watching movies. When you take a path, especially if you drop out of school. I hopefully we'll get in depth with the debate, but when I always tell people to drop out of school, it's not that you should be lazy. When you drop out of school, the chances of making it are twice as difficult as somebody who went to school, because the society doesn't regard you anymore like somebody they can give a job to. You need to fend for yourself, and even if you have to get a job, you have to convince people that you have to get a job. You have to be at least twice as good as people who actually pursue education to the final level and they have those certificates. So you cannot afford watching movies. Maybe, of course, you're going to have times for relaxation. Maybe that's when you can watch it. But watch it to the point where you can actually memorize scripts. That's impossible.
Not if you want to be the kind of programmer that you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So before we get into the heart of, have you watched the movie The Suits? Suits, just Suits.
I've heard it, very recommended for entrepreneurs. I've heard about it, but I haven't watched it.
Okay, I've watched The Suit quite a lot. I like Harvey Specter, I like Mike Ross and the ideas. Mike Ross is a character in Suits. He didn't go to law school.
Yeah.
But he has an attribute, if he reads something, he never forgets it. And he stays in his mind like that all the time. So he's read all the law books that there are. He's an efficient guy, he's a smart guy. So why not be a lawyer? Why do I have to go to Harvard to have the degree for me to be able to be a lawyer?
Absolutely.
So on that note, I may turn to, I agree with your philosophy at a certain point in time that maybe school isn't all there is to it. But then, should we not frame the argument like this? Maybe school isn't all there is to it. If you go to school, okay, fine. If you don't, no, but don't drop out.
You should drop out.
Your stance are that firm on TV. Cedric said, drop out of school.
Yeah, of course.
Explain
Absolutely.
further.
Yeah, you should drop out.
Why?
First, I want us to make something clear here. I'm talking about school. I'm not talking about education.
Very true.
Because Cameroon is going to hear me now and everybody's going to go berserk that, oh, he said education is not good. That's what I do on social media. I wake up and I say, okay, drop out of school. People say, oh, how can you say we should stop education? Education is the bedrock of the nation. Education this, education that. Let's make this clear. School is a tool for education.
Okay.
I'm not even talking about the school system, about the educational system, as people say, because sometimes I bring up the argument, people say, no, you should say we should change the educational system.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the educational system.
Okay.
I'm talking about school. And let's relate this. Let me make it to be very understandable for everyone.
Okay.
Take, for example, farming. You've got several tools for farming.
Yeah.
What's the purpose? You want to harvest more crops. You want to be a better farmer. What I'm saying is that the hoe and the machete those are outdated tools for farming.
Okay.
I'm saying we should get tractors. I'm saying we should be getting those machines which are going to get farming at a higher level. So if you come and tell me, the fact that I'm saying that we should not use the hoe and the machete does not mean that I hate farming. That's what a lot of people don't get. I do not hate education. School is a tool for education, and it's a very bad tool for education. It's a terrible tool for education.
It's not an ineffective tool, it's a bad tool.
It's a terrible school. It's a terrible tool. It's a tool that should be eliminated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
And here is why. And to make my point very much understandable, let's define school. I know the school is a very generic term, but I'm talking about the four walls and the classroom where people go and sit, right from the elementary to the postgraduate level. All right. That building they call school, that's what I'm talking about. Because you've got homeschooling, I'm not talking about that. You've got the online schooling, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that school. Yes. Like when somebody says I'm going to school, means you're actually living to go somewhere. That's what I'm talking about.
University of where? No more UB.
Exactly.
Okay.
Why is it bad, you ask? Here's why it is bad. Okay, I could talk for one day about this. As a matter of fact, I have a blog post, 100 points against school. I could write 200.
I read it again this morning before coming on the show, so I could understand you better.
Exactly. I could write 200 of those points, but I'm just going to name a few. First limitation for school is the fact that there's that building, and people find themselves in that building. It means that you're trying to equate everybody at the same intelligence level, and you're trying to give them education. It doesn't work that way. Even us, while growing up, our parents knew that there are topics. If my dad wants to educate me on marriage, for example, he's not going to be talking to me the same way he's going to be talking to my 5-year-old brother. But school bundles everybody forget, this is the age perspective.
Yeah.
School bundles everybody and puts in a classroom. You've got people who are slow at learning, you've got people who are fast at learning, you've got people who are average at learning.
If they're in class 1, they're in class 1.
You're in class 1, you're in class 1. They teach everybody the same way.
Okay.
Now, when you teach people that way, the people who do not understand, the teacher is forced to compromise. There are those who understand very fast, and they could become geniuses faster. Those people are limited because they're waiting for the others to catch up. On the other hand, the teacher could also say, okay, if you haven't gotten it, you failed. You haven't gotten it, that's it. Move on with everybody, and then you decide to fail, and then you decide to repeat. You lose a lot of time, you waste a lot of time. That's a terrible limitation I've gotten with school. These limitations are so many, going to the point where leaving school, people are going to be judging you based on the certificate and not based on what you can actually achieve in life. Leaving school, and then school giving you the impression that you've come to the end of learning.
Yeah.
All of that contributes into my arguments against school.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I understand that part. So let's shift the conversation again a little.
Yeah.
You are a fine programmer. Programming, I'm not talking about a web developer or something. I'm talking about people who build apps, people who create concepts out of nothing. Because you see that and you think, okay, how can I make this show that Richard is doing so that someone who cannot hear him can see him but still understand what he's saying? Then you get to building an app that a hearing impaired person can use because they see.
Yeah.
Now, so in my opinion, that's genius.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have been as efficient as you are without school if you did not even have the basics?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Practically, possibly not, because if I didn't have school, it's possible that I wouldn't have taken the route of programming. That's very possible. But the point I'm trying to make is this.
Yeah.
Without school, I could still get the education to become a programmer. And as a matter of fact, I would have been a way better programmer than I am right now. Okay, you call me a fine programmer. I mean, in the standards of the Cameroonian standards, that's arguably true.
Okay.
But on the global standards, I do not compare with the geniuses who are out there.
Okay.
Bill Gates, for example, he was a hacker by 13. By a hacker is somebody who is so dedicated. I'm not talking about the ethical and unethical things you do. Hacker is somebody who is so dedicated to programming that they do it now. It's like a hobby. They just create and create and create. Bill Gates did that while he was at when he was 13.
Okay.
If I had started programming instead of going to school when I was 4 or 5, do you really think I'm going to be the Cedric Ipkiss fine programmer you're talking of right now?
Okay. Where was Bill Gates doing programming? Didn't he go to school?
No, of course Bill Gates went to school, but you should know that Bill Gates used to skip classes to go to the computer laboratory.
So why don't you say, let's find a way to put programming on a platform that people can learn it? Are you saying that if you learned it in the setting that you probably learned the English language or learned history and literature or physics and mathematics, you wouldn't have been as efficient as you are?
I learned it on those platforms and I couldn't do nothing.
So when did you start to do something on it?
I started doing something when I decided to learn it at home. That was at when I was in Eric. That's around 2011.
Is the fault the institution or the student?
Absolutely the institution's fault.
Okay.
Okay. Because the student
has proven himself.
The student knows nothing. When you're going to school, your parents, when you send your kid to school, your kid knows nothing.
Yes.
You've told him go to school. I was 3 or 4 when I was sent to school. Okay. So the culture, the trust our parents had in the institution was that, okay, you're going to mold this kid to reach a certain level. A lot of people tell me that without that school, you wouldn't have had this consciousness. That's total crap. Okay. Because there are a lot of people without school who have this consciousness and who are extremely wealthy, who are extremely intelligent, who are extremely educated, right? So it was the institution's fault because schools have been built to give you a sort of dogmatism. Okay, yeah, maybe you reach the university and they will tell you that the university is supposed to make you think. The university is not supposed to make you master and maybe cram everything. But practically, is that what the university does? When you go to the university or you go to school, what happens? The teacher gives you something, you regurgitate it to him in an examination. If you don't regurgitate what the teacher has given you, you fail. Whose fault is that? Is it my fault? If I decide to fail, the society looks at me like a failure. like an illiterate. My parents get angry with me. Everybody gets mad at me. Is that my fault?
You don't go to school, society still gets angry at you, your parents get angry at you, and society can hardly trust you because the parameters for which the judge trusts, one of them is schooling.
But the figures, okay,
Yes.
the figures don't lie.
Yeah,
Because when you drop out of school, figures, when I talk about figures, this is what I usually tell so many people, especially dropouts.
Yeah.
When you drop out of school, become extremely skilled and make a lot of money. Because that's the highest place where the figures are going to come from. Make a lot of money so that when you are disputed, people look at those figures and say, but if you're disputing this guy, that's data. The figures, the money, the value you're able to contribute tells you that, okay, society starts respecting you. But if you drop out, and the other figures I could talk about is value.
And join boys in the idle park. Yeah.
No, if you drop out and join boys in the idle park, you've created, I mean, there are no figures. There is nothing for you to be able to use to argue against society. So when society brings a certificate, when society brings certificate, bring wealth you've created. Wealth is not only money. Money was an example. Wealth goes a long way.
Yeah.
This dress you're wearing, for example, was made by somebody. That is wealth. This dress I'm putting on is wealth. This phone is wealth. Create wealth. These are figures. They are not going to lie. Even if the society says that, okay, the certificate is not there, if you created this phone, the society is going to respect you.
All right. Thank you, Cedric. I respect your stance. Whatever they are yours. And I don't want to debate them further. So let's take the conversation to another level.
Okay.
Programming in Cameroon. I don't even want to limit it to just programming.
Yeah.
I want to talk about technology penetration as a whole.
Yeah.
We are still, in many ways, I mean, if we were to grade it on a scale of 100, the percentage would be someplace close to the 97th percentile.
Yeah.
In many ways, still a consumer generation when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
There are few things that we do that we created on our own.
Yeah.
And this genius that you talked about is, I don't know if it's that it's lacking, or is that the tools, by tools I'm talking about, take for instance this phone.
Yeah.
This is aluminium cover for my phone. If we don't have this aluminium cover, or we don't have this glass screen, or we don't have maybe the board that is inside, or the battery, what are we lacking that we are not yet able? Because I see a lot of genius in my mind, maybe not comparatively to the first scale programmers like you'd see, but I see a lot of genius here still, and yet we are still consuming products and services that are chunked in to us from abroad or from better programmers, as you say.
Yeah.
Where is the disconnect?
Okay. I think there could possibly be several disconnects, but I'm going to name two.
Okay.
The first is education. It
Okay.
goes back to the school argument.
Yeah.
We don't have a good system of educating our especially in the technological sector, we don't have a good system of education. And that is why there has been a recent surge in the number of programmers in Cameroon. Why? Because most programmers deal with the software and not as much with the hardware. And so to be able to code a software which is going to run on a phone or a computer takes nothing. It doesn't take the aluminum cover which you named. It doesn't take all the chips which you named. It just takes your knowledge and your ability. There's been that surge because society and globalization has succeeded to do what school failed to do, which is give programmers the access to those learning tools. The internet has brought it. We've got the knowledge. We've been able to develop it. So if the educational system, I'm not talking of the school system, if the educational system and actually it's being done, especially by companies, is made in such a way that we actually learn these things practically. Maybe how to assemble a car, how to assemble a phone practically, and not go and sit in a classroom and they tell you that this is the part, this part of a car is called this, this part of a car is called this. That an educational institution which is training that is supposed to bring the tools for us to be able to use it firsthand, and we're able to do that. So the education is lacking. Like I said, fortunately, and I mentioned that most companies are improving with that. When a company educates you, like our company does, for example, when a company educates you, the company brings those tools because the company is educating you for you to be able to work on the company unlike what school is doing, where school educates you for you to be able to come out and maybe have a job. So most of these companies, they bring the tools to us, and then we use them. So if that educational system expands, maybe school could learn from that and bring those tools for us to use. Now the second is going to be a little bit structural. This limitation comes from the fact that technology is a tool which brings a lot of transparency. And development in technology in any country, in any sector, means gross development in possibly every other sector of the country and a lot of transparency. If we go to countries in Africa, for example, which are technologically developed, we will see that a lot of practices are eliminated, like corruption, for example, and all of that. It's a fact. We know in Cameroon, it's a fact that we have corrupt officials. And if I am an official in an office, and I usually make, for every contract which comes, I usually make 3 million through the back door. If you bring technology to automate that, I'll never make that 3 million, because the machine doesn't lie. Human beings can lie. Even if you tweak the machine to lie, another smart person coming in is going to discover it, because the data is left there. I think this is another limitation which is slowing down the growth of technology within our country.
Okay, that's actually a very impressive perspective to get. But then I'm still worried, because only a few days ago I was watching on international television the tech conference in Texas, where these guys were showcasing things that they were doing. Advances. Television wants to go 3D. I mean, like you could look at your window at one time. The window in your living room could be a TV, and another time it's it just shows you some expands in some place. You could your floor tiling and these things are changing, and yet I feel that we would always be trailing. And like you said, one, because maybe they bring stuff to us, because if we were assembling, say, this phone, then maybe at some point a Cameroonian would have started thinking, okay, is there a possibility that we can use something else than an aluminum cover? Maybe some mineral or something that we have. And then someday we would hear that there's an innovation that a Cameroonian probably started a phone with a glass cover and you can see through, and issues like that. But because they only bring the hardware to us already, and then you just have to work on it. But I am worried, because if this trend continues and persists, we are always going to be a trailing nation. There's no time where there's going to be a tech conference and then Cameroon will come and then disrupt the order, and they'd be like, innovations from Cameroon this year just broke the chain. Cameroonians are doing this, Cameroonians are doing that. First, we learn from the West. The West has started cell phones. They break all the grounds, all the stereotypes, and then we just follow. Will we ever be able to lead this race? Ever?
Tricky question, but I think yes, possible.
Are you not being overly optimistic?
I'm not being overly optimistic, because in tech we already lead in a lot of small facets. You know, studying tech, especially studying it nowadays, you do not study it. The competition is not really among you and the people in Cameroon. When you're studying tech, especially if you take self-education, you're going to be pitted against the world. You're going to meet people from all over the world, all right? So Cameroonians, so many Cameroonians have been able to create different solutions, different products, which are actually being used continuously by the people in the West. This is already a pointer to the fact that if we have more such people creating, we have more people who are able to lead. Let's take the simple, in its simplest forms, let's take plugins. A plugin is just something you add to an existing solution, okay? We have so many plugins for so many diverse reasons, programming languages, for so many hacking reasons and so forth, which have been created by so many Cameroonians and which are good. We've got apps which have been created and which are the first of their kind in any field. And I spoke about plugins, because plugins, for you to be able to create a plugin in anything, it helps others who are learning to be able to leverage from your knowledge. So Cameroonians are not only creating those things which are the first of their kind, but they're actually helping to expand knowledge in certain fields. And if you can actually help expand knowledge in a field, it means you're leading. What we're lacking is not the knowledge. What we're lacking is not so much the resources, because it's becoming so easy to ship all these resources and for us to be able to assemble. And phones are actually being assembled in Cameroon. That's something many people do not know.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that.
no, actually they are.
Okay.
So if for the resources to come, it's extremely simple. I mean, if you go online right now, say you can develop your own operating system. Android is an open source operating system, meaning that you can modify the Android operating system and create your own operating system out of it. Okay. If, for example, you do that, you can actually ship the hardware from any country. It's going to be as cheap as possible. Buy anywhere, buy on eBay, buy on Alibaba. So that's not the limit. The limit is in the number of people who are getting into it. India is becoming a superpower because you have so many people getting into the technological sector. So if we can have more people getting into it, the technology is going to develop. Hopefully we can reach the level where we will actually be leaders.
The maths is too hard.
It's not hard. Just get. You know, I believe in what Steve Jobs said, that everybody should learn programming. He said programming should, everybody, it should be a course, like they teach us arithmetic in school. Programming should be a course in school, because everybody needs programming. You don't need to be an expert in it. But in every field you are, you're going to discover that you're going to need to automate something. You're going to discover that you need a robot to be able to do you something. If you're a farmer, for example, you might need to create a software for your inventory. If you are, I don't know, a cook, you might need to create a software which can be able to tell you the exact quantity of ingredients which you can put. You can create a robot to automate your cooking for you. Everybody needs programming. It's going to really help you to be able to speed up your productivity. So in every domain, it's possible. If all Cameroonians or most Cameroonians can succeed in learning programming or in getting into tech, we will definitely reach the level of being leaders.
Before we go, Cedric, you have founded and co-founded a couple of companies.
Yeah.
Right now, you're CEO with Eternal Company. COO, sorry.
Yeah.
With Eternal Company, you co-founded with your friend, and that's Azeh Shabib.
Yeah.
Now, this is, I don't know if this is a problem for most techies. Operations, marketing, and the administration of a business. So most often, people like you create ideas, conceive them, and they say, okay, you manage, because we don't have that.
Yeah.
Bill Gates is CEO of Microsoft.
No longer.
Well,
yeah, he
yes,
was.
Yes, okay, thank you, he was. Zuckerberg, still there. Steve Jobs, his time. Now, these were key programmers of their time, but they succeeded to manage their businesses. Okay, now, I am sensing that a trend or a rift is growing in the number of programmers and techies who want to also be boss, and the few who are willing to relinquish authority or control in certain aspects, so that someone probably who is a little more skilled in managing other aspects of a business can be able to coordinate them together. For Cameroon to build sustainable businesses on the backbone of techies, what do we need most? Techies who can control their own businesses, or people who can manage techies?
As somebody in tech, I don't know why you want to acquire or mix your knowledge. I mean, I don't know why you want to be a tech expert and then be a business developer and then a marketer and a salesperson at the same time. Of course, at the beginning stages, you cannot find those people. It's difficult to partner with those people, and there is always a matter of trust. But at a smaller level, why on earth will you want to be somebody, a tech expert, and then you want to, at a bigger level, why do you want to be a tech expert and then you want to be an expert in marketing, you want to be an expert in business development?
Because most often the expert or the person controlling the business is the face of the business. And sometimes some techs feel like I'm losing grounds to this guy.
Okay, I'll advise tech experts to drop the ego, a little. Right?
Okay.
We need to focus on operations. We've got people who are trained marketers. We've got people who are trained business developers. We've got people who are trained salespeople. Those people are going to help us grow. If you want to become a business developer and you understand the tech, it's good. But you have to choose one side. Because the people, Steve Jobs, for example, many people argue he wasn't an expert programmer, but he was a wonderful marketer, a very amazing salesperson, and an astute business developer. Remember, his closest partner was a very great programmer, Steve Wozniak, very, very great programmer. Steve Jobs didn't focus on the operations. Steve Jobs focused on the sales. Okay, but now he was a programmer and he understood the product. So if you want to be a tech person and you want to get back into business development, focus on business development and then find others to be able to run the product for you. Don't sit in the coding lab and then you have a meeting with this client and then tomorrow you are selling on this market and then tomorrow they are seeing you on TV. The next day you're back to your coding lab. Coding is something very difficult. It's difficult to achieve that unless you are a Superman to be able to sit and code and then wake up every morning and attend all the meetings.
Thank you very much, Cedric Ipkiss, Cedric Che Azeh. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. No more controversy online. I think the people who've known that studio stands most likely won't get it anymore, right?
Controversy is going to continue online, Richard.
Okay, that's the guy. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for having watched On the Tipping Point. We're airing live, and you can also follow us on the YouTube, on Facebook, and these platforms. We're always going to be happy having you. Cedric, of course, is a programmer and knows how to work those things. So you're going to find a way to make us reach higher targets online on this one.
For some, in exchange for some money, of course.
Okay, in exchange for some money. Next time you and Cedric talk, even if it's online, we'll talk exchange for some money, because a lot of people, I think it's a serious problem in Cameroon. We're not selling ourselves for our worth.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But we have to go. Our time is up. Until some other time, it's bye-bye from us.